What if I told you that stupidity isn't just the absence of intelligence, but something far more dangerous? What if it's a force that can turn brilliant minds into instruments of destruction? What if the greatest threat to civilization isn't evil people doing evil things, but ordinary people who have simply stopped thinking? Picture this. A world-renowned scientist with multiple degrees suddenly begins spreading dangerous misinformation. A compassionate teacher starts endorsing harmful ideologies. A loving parent begins making choices that actually endanger their children. These aren't set evil people. They are intelligent, well-meaning individuals who fallen victim to what Dietrich Bonhoeffer once called the power of stupidity. And here is the chilling part. It's not just happening to other people. It's happening to people just like you and me. Now ask yourself, have you ever believed something simply because everyone else around you did? Hold on to that question, because this might be one of the most important psychological insights of the modern era. Let's go back to 1961. Stanley Milgram conducted his infamous obedience experiments at Yale University. Ordinary people were told to administer what they thought were painful electric shocks to a stranger. Despite hearing screams of agony, 65% of participants delivered shocks they believed could be lethal. These weren't monsters. They were regular people who had temporarily surrendered their ability to think critically and judge morally. This is exactly what Bonhoeffer witnessed in Nazi Germany, and it led him to a disturbing conclusion. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Reason doesn't work. Facts don't matter. And force? Useless. Why? Because stupidity isn't just ignorance. It often believes it's doing good. That's what makes it so dangerous. Bonhoeffer's most unsettling insight? Stupidity isn't always a personal failing. It's often the product of systemic pressures. Think about it. When people are overworked, drowning in debt, and bombarded with information, real thinking becomes a luxury. Outrage gets more clicks than nuance. Slogans win elections, not complex policies. And on social media, false information spreads 6 times faster than the truth. Why? Because lies are simple. And the truth, it's messy, complicated, and requires effort. Have you ever wondered why it's easier to go along with a crowd, even when you know something's wrong? Bonhoeffer knew. He saw rational individuals abandon their minds when they joined groups. Later, Solomon Asch's experiments proved it. 75% of people will conform, even if the group is obviously wrong. Now think about how that plays out in today's world, where algorithms create echo chambers, misinformation spreads like wildfire, and emotional satisfaction beats critical analysis every time. So the question is, in a world that rewards ignorance and punishes independent thinking, how do we resist? If you found this thought-provoking, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into psychology, philosophy, and the forces shaping our modern minds. Don't just be a passive observer. Be a thinker in a world that's trying to make you anything but. Have you ever wondered why your social media feed shows you exactly what you want to see? That's not a coincidence. It's engineered ignorance at work. We've seen this pattern time and time again throughout history. The Salem witch trials weren't driven by evil, but by deeply religious, well-meaning people who genuinely believed they were protecting their communities. The Red Scare of the 1950s? It wasn't led by villains but by patriotic Americans who sincerely believed they were defending democracy. In both cases, intelligent, educated individuals abandoned critical thinking in favor of group consensus and emotional certainty. So what chance do we have today? In a world where algorithms and economic pressures are stacked against us, Bonhoeffer offered one answer, something he called costly grace. It's the willingness to think independently, even when it's painful, unpopular, or dangerous. But here sits the problem. We're not just up against peer pressure anymore. We're up against millions of years of evolution and billion-dollar algorithms designed to exploit our mental shortcuts. Still, that doesn't mean we're powerless. On an individual level, there are ways to resist what Bonhoeffer called functional stupidity. It starts with cultivating something called intellectual humility, the simple, radical act of admitting we might be wrong. So, how do we build that resistance in daily life? Here are 4 powerful practices. Embrace intellectual friction. Set aside time each week to read arguments from people who completely disagree with you, not to change your mind, but to test if your beliefs can withstand scrutiny. Here's 2. Question your certainty. When you're absolutely sure about something, ask what evidence would change my mind. If your answer is nothing, that's not strength, it's a warning sign. Soul, and fist sharing. Before posting or sharing content online, take 60 seconds to verify it from an independent source. That tiny pause can disrupt the cycle of emotional reaction that algorithms thrive on. Well, 4. Say I don't set no. In a world that rewards loud certainty, admitting you don't know something is a radical, even rebellious act. But let's be honest, individual resistance isn't enough. We also need systemic change. That means holding social media platforms accountable by requiring transparency about how their algorithms curate our content. It means funding media literacy programs that teach people how to analyze sources, spot manipulation, and think critically. It means redesigning digital platforms to reward thoughtfulness over tribalism, and shaping policies that ease the economic pressures pushing people toward mental shortcuts. Because when people aren't constantly stressed about healthcare, housing, or job security, they have more mental space to engage with complexity, not just react to it. Bonhoeffer couldn't have predicted our modern world, but he understood this much. Stupidity is not a lack of intelligence, but a moral and social failure, a surrender of thought to the comfort of conformity. And now, neuroscience confirms it. Our brains are literally wired for functional stupidity. They're designed to prioritize speed over accuracy, familiarity over truth, and emotional comfort over cognitive effort. These were survival tools in ancient times. Today, they set our vulnerabilities. And now, we're not just facing propaganda. We're up against AI-powered systems that know exactly how to exploit those vulnerabilities. From deep fakes to disinformation, from algorithmic echo chambers to emotionally manipulative headlines, every click, every pause, every reaction is data used to erode your ability to think freely. We saw it during COVID-19. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, people with high intelligence began spreading debunked conspiracy theories. These weren't failures of IQ. They were failures of intellectual independence under extreme pressure. And Bonhoeffer understood the cost of standing alone. He refused to surrender his mind, and paid for it with his life. On April 9, 1945, just weeks before the end of the war, he was executed for resisting the Nazi regime. His voice was silenced, but his warning has never been more relevant. So now the question turns to you. In an age of AI, outrage, and engineered ignorance, will you choose comfort or courage? If you found this powerful or thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Together, let's build a community that doesn't just consume information, but questions it, challenges it, and thinks for itself. Because independent thought isn't just resistance, it's survival. This is the end, for me, the beginning of life. Those were Dietrich Bonhoeffer's final words, spoken to a fellow prisoner just moments before his execution. But his death wasn't just an act of political resistance. It was a final stand, a defense of thought itself. Bonhoeffer understood something terrifyingly profound. When people stop thinking independently, they stop being fully human. They become, in his words, puppets, their strings pulled by whatever force happens to be strongest in the moment. And that brings us to today. Who stands fast? When the pressure to conform is overwhelming? When thinking independently requires courage? When the cost of truth is higher than the comfort of lies? The answer isn't found in IQ or education. It lies in the daily, often difficult choice to remain curious rather than certain, to seek truth instead of convenience, to pause and reflect instead of reacting instantly. These aren't heroic acts. They're ordinary practices that become extraordinary when the world around you has stopped doing them. The tragedy is that intellectual surrender doesn't feel like defeat. It feels like liberation. Thinking is hard. It's uncomfortable to hold two conflicting ideas at once. It hurts to admit we might be wrong. But Bonhoeffer believed and proved that this discomfort is the cost of staying human. In a world that profits from our intellectual surrender, choosing to think for yourself has become a radical act. And here sips the uncomfortable truth. We are all vulnerable to functional stupidity. The moment we believe we're immune, we've already begun to fall into it. The price of intellectual freedom isn't just vigilance against outside forces. It SEPs vigilance against our own minds. Our desire for certainty, our attraction to simple answers, our fear of being wrong. Bonhoeffer's theory is haunting because it's so accurate. We see it every day. Intelligent people believing obviously false things. Educated individuals making catastrophic decisions. Good citizens supporting policies that contradict their values. This isn't about intelligence. It's about systems that reward shortcuts over thinking. But here's the hope. If stupidity is partly chosen, it can also be rejected. If it sits structural, it can be changed. If it's born from overwhelm, we can create conditions that make thinking easier. Think of critical thinking, like physical training. At first, it sets uncomfortable, even painful. But over time, it builds strength. We wouldn't run a marathon without training. So why do we expect to navigate complex information without mental discipline? So here sips my challenge to you this week. Pick one belief you hold strongly. Then spend just 30 minutes exploring the best arguments against it. Not to torture yourself. Not to become paralyzed with doubt. But to practice the kind of intellectual courage Bonhoeffer died defending. If your belief survives, you'll hold it with more confidence. If it doesn't, you'll have grown, not weaker, but wiser. The future of human dignity may depend on how we answer Bonhoeffer Sip's final challenge. Not can we think, but will we? If this video made you question something you thought you knew, that's not weakness, it's the beginning of real courage. But share this with someone who isn't afraid to think deeply. Like, subscribe, and comment below. What's one belief you're willing to question this week? Because in a world designed to exploit our mental laziness, the simple act of careful thinking is the most important resistance we have. And every time you choose, curiosity over certainty, evidence over emotion, depth over simplicity, you start not just defending your own mind, you start defending the very possibility of human wisdom. In an age that's increasingly defined by artificial stupidity,